Okay. Yay. All right, switching to that so I can see you guys. Okay. So last week we um talked about just intentionality and being under pressure. So a couple things she talks about, which I didn't realize was actually a thing, is task saturation. Have you guys ever heard of that? Of task saturation? It was actually a new concept. I understood it, but I didn't have a name to this concept. And so she talks about in with pilots, it's being in an environment. Um, this saturation environment can overtake the pilot before there's actually a clear awareness of developing danger. So that means they're so focused on all the tasks that actually overwhelms their ability to be able to be aware of coming dangers. Typically, they say a lot of them end up crashing when this happens. Um, and so I have a great example from our life for this. um, One was I had just had the two bone surgeries where they had to dig bone down to the nerve. So there was a lot of healing going on in my face, being able to communicate with the kids, all that. Still had chronic headaches. So we were used to going to the beach every summer. And we're like, we're not going to miss this beach. And we go, it was to a new condo. Someone offered it to us. It was free. We were like, it must be the Lord. Well, I ended up actually having such bad headaches. I was barely able to enjoy and vaguely remember this trip. But what I do remember, oh, my husband got sick too at the same time when we went down to the beach house. And then the kids were literally just watched in this foreign place, the TV, Puff and Rock. Like that's their one memory. Like maybe we went to the beach a couple times, but in retrospect, we came back and they were like, we never want to go to that condo again. And I was like, why? They're like, it wasn't fun. We were stuck. And I was like, in retrospect, instead of just keep pushing, instead of recognizing where I was, I just kept trying to push through, keep things normal instead of actually being like, we can stay home for the summer. Like it actually probably is more wisdom. They actually would have had fun just being home instead of worrying of like, we're going to miss out. We got to go do what we normally do. And so, and we actually all would have been fine. And then they wouldn't have been traumatized by this condo. And so we actually had to the next couple of years with my girls coach them through just some actually emotional healing from that time. So we all learned some lessons in that. But I did not pick up on the signals that they weren't out of place. I wasn't out of place and basically was saturated by all these thoughts and thinking and trying to just keep it normal. Y'all ever been there? You're just trying to keep it normal and then you miss all the signs of like, oh, that nope, definitely should have taken the off ramp here and done a pit stop and just rested. And so with that, we have to know we have to learn how to work through just our feelings to be successful. And that just takes, navigating and using that thought model, intentional thoughts, unintentional thoughts, even in the little things if you need, of like you're trying to do dinner and you get stressed out and you're like, that's it, we're just going out to eat, or like, y'all are on your own, go get cereal or something. Instead of, there has been a thought process leading up to that. I call it the train, that all of a sudden you've gotten to the front of the train and you're like, um, because there's a thought process that's actually driving it of like, maybe you're worried, you don't have enough time. There's other things back there that are driving the front of this train. It's not actually the meals going on. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so how do we maintain focus on what's most important when a moment's inattention could mean catastrophe? So for her as a fighter pilot, that's like life and death. Sometimes in our high stress situations, we're trying to respond so much to maybe prospects, different messages, or we're trying to navigate maybe a family crisis, maybe our own health, or maybe all three converge and you feel like you're trying to navigate all these tasks in these different areas. That's why I asked about those 4 different areas of, your work, your family life, outside your family life. And I should have said health too, because that's a factor. And so how do you navigate all those in your mind? And then how do we develop our capacity? She calls for targeted awareness. I'm going to turn the page. So the goal is to avoid ever reaching the point of debilitation task saturation, if I read that right. It's so you can keep a clear view of current and developing dangers to be able to complete your mission. And your mission is your top 3 tasks that we talked about earlier in the last lesson. Because things like dread, overwhelm, stress, feeling like you're drowning or crushing, not having enough time. Y'all ever had that thought? Like, I just don't have time for this. Not having the tools, not having the resources, information overload, which is just too much data. You literally can't keep processing. Then you have your tech skill overload. So this is the interesting part. Your brain will prioritize and focus on a single thing in an attempt to control and stabilize the situation. Have you ever looked at, like, if your desk is messy or you go to your to-do list or something, or even looking at the daily winning sheet? Have you ever looked at it and you're like your brain is sort of going all over the place? Maybe for the organized people, we don't have that. Do you, Loxley, just give me a thumbs up. Do you deal with that? Like being more of okay, you do have that. So what happens is I have found I have to focus on one, and I have to go to that priority of my IPA. What's the first thing? New reach outs and follow-ups. And then I just pull it like that, because otherwise my brain, how it works, it will try to start to connect all those things and get pieces going in each area instead of being able to just focus. And then the task saturation happens by just looking at the sheet. So to navigate that, you keep your priorities in front of you and then connect what's on the sheet to the top 3 priorities, and you ignore the rest as a distraction. They're just distractions until you complete that one. And then you go back to your 3 and you go to the next thing. And you keep doing that. So it's almost like your top 3 priorities is your navigation, your compass, your navigation for this task saturation piece. And I had after, so just an example, I had work hours prior to having the headaches, and then I became highly adaptable and I just had to fit it in. And so what happened was, when I started having work hours again, I sat down, I felt paralyzed. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. Of course I knew how to do it. And of course I could do it because I have been doing it. But I had switched doing from an adaptability style to a more organized, and it felt really weird. And maybe you have the other where you're trying to go adapting into organized into a more adapted style because of the situation you're in. And so there's just a grace period of transition in that. And just recognizing that that's actually happening will help you be able to move forward instead of it paralyzing you. Does that make sense? Okay. So, so the habits of survival were working against me instead of for me in that situation. So I had to adapt the 1% new habit, the Atomic Habits book. So I had to take it and I had to decide on which thing I was going to make a habit. So first thing was sitting down at my desk, turning on music. And then I was sitting down, turning on music, doing my new reach outs. Sitting down, turning on music, new reach outs, and then follow up. So I've been having to build that back in slowly, and I do it on a day. And if I miss a day, I actually don't go backwards. I just pick up where I left off on the 1% and then continue forward. Like for me, the top three was retention, my team, and then IPA conversations, because I had created such a habit of, it felt almost abnormal to talk to people about Plexus because of just how I'd been going. Just, I don't know how to describe it. Just the habit I had developed. I wasn't really worried about that, but my retention, ironically, because that's one of my greatest passions, had felt overwhelming because it was more complex. Talking and getting people to recognize their health goals and make a purchase is a lot more complex than working through their health goals and navigating all that. I didn't realize that though. So did you know that high achievers have to have some sort of arousal in order to be high achievers? So what that means is excitement. Like when you get excited, it propels you forward. So I know it's so amazingly nerdy. I love it. So here's my two books to pick from. So our current book study, but then you have this GAPS book. For me, this I had to wait until later at nighttime because this was more developing me. I didn't necessarily get excited. Now, for someone else, this could get you really, really excited depending on the season you're in and propel you into working. This, because I saw it started connecting dots for me, I'll actually open it, read a page, and then I do my IPA because I'm like, the world needs to know everyone's anemic. Oh my gosh, everyone's going to die. I'm just kidding. I don't think like that. But I do, like, it starts to bubble up a need in me that then I want to go meet. So for everyone, it's going to be different. It's not going to be reading, more scientific books for some people. It's going to be growing yourself personally and you get excited. It's going to be learning more about business, just the different things. So you have to find what works for you. So understand stress can reduce the capacity of our working memory and inhibit your information and recall in long-term memory. So if you notice, you're like, oh, my memory, I can't remember that. I just made the plans and I can't. Well, that's why, because stress is literally removing that capability. It has to do with your HPA axis, your hypothalamus, your adrenals, and your pituitary. So you've got your hormones and your stress, that cortisol that gets released. It affects your hypothalamus, if I'm saying that right. And that's actually the memory port into your brain. And so if that is stressed or not working right, it's like water going through a sieve. Like you're pouring it in and it's catching a little bit, but it always goes out the bottom. So that's why I love our products, because it actually helps that HPA axis as you're under stressful situations. But you have to also recognize that stress will do that to your memory. So it can cause you to revert to previously learned behaviors that may or not be effective. That I had to recognize because I was definitely reverting to behaviors that were not helpful in the season that I am in now. So stress and anxiety conspire to thwart our ability to get the job done and possibly unable to execute our well thought out plan. Who's had that happen? I've totally like more than two hands. Like, what happened? So the span of control is determined by the things you can and should control at any given time. So the things you can and should control at any given time. Other people's actions, the other way people are thinking, the way that the world's going, none of that is within our control. The only thing is going to be up here, which is 80%. Actually, 80% of our work is up here. Understand that everything else is just a distraction. It is literally there to distract you and to stop you from moving forward. And those things should not take up mental space. They're taking up mental space and they need to be evicted. So things like how many likes you failed at dinner, you're rechecking your messages to see if there's that one message that's going to change the course of history, and different things like that. Or even just worrying about if what you said was okay, if someone's going to get offended They saw the message, but are they mad at me? You have no control over that. All you can control is your response, and how you even view it, your perspective. So your span of control can keep you alive and keep you loving your job and keep your mission and purpose clear, because it actually, as you eliminate the distractions, it creates a clarity and a focus that makes you extremely powerful. Think like a laser. Fear will drive you to distraction, and it de-energizes you. It's literally stealing your battery power. And so this allows us to see what could be while navigating what is when you work in the span of control. So you're still seeing what is the reality, but you're able to see what could be, and that helps you actually get there. All right, so to refocus your span of control is going to be 1, every day you have your 3 things to accomplish. You're going to have a checklist of targeted goals, and we're going to learn to task shed. We'll probably talk about that next time. And then communication. You have to increase that for others to help. So you guys know, you've seen Michelle, she stepped up when I was like, I can't coach my team. I literally can't open my mouth to talk to people on the phone. I was like, I need your help. And she said, okay, I can do that. Like, it was within her capacity. God timed it, worked it out. She was able to step up and in while I had to go heal. And so that's the beauty. We have a team. That's why I love our business model, because we have a team of working together, which actually strengthens us and makes us able to move forward. And I know you guys on here have been the benefit of actually me communicating that to her and her able to stepping into that place. I didn't have anyone to communicate childcare help. There wasn't anyone. I had one person that was able to have their 18-year-old come over and spend the night, but she has 8 kids. She had to, she needed that 18-year-old back to help, with her family. And so I communicated what I could in the span I could, and worked. The cool thing was I worked on these unconsciously, subconsciously, not unconsciously. All right. So that's it for today. I think my computer is going to turn off in like 30 seconds. Hold on. Do you guys have any questions?